Thank you for being here on Friday. This week really was a culmination of thousands of hours of work. A lot of input from Oklahomans all across all 77 counties submitting to the portal. Around $18 billion in submissions. Obviously, we were able to only allocate $1.87 billion. We didn't do the full. We still have some back in reserve to be able to make decisions next session or a later date. But it was really a culmination of a lot of really great ideas. We were able to prioritize those based on the number of ideas that came in. I'm proud of the work that both the Senate and the House did working together to achieve this. And Republicans and Democrats participated in a very meaningful way to be able to provide for water, broadband, health care, and many other important issues. Through this process, we saw there are many needs in Oklahoma, and it wasn't a surprise that the needs were there, but the magnitude of the needs on stuff like water, of identifying about $80 billion in needs, and we've seen around the country when you don't invest in water infrastructure over time, it becomes really dangerous, and so the investments we're making through the Water Resources Board and that appropriation are going to be generational change and protect people all across Oklahoma get safe water. And so I'm proud of the work that Senator Hall and Representative Hilbert and Senator Thompson and Representative Wallace and all the working groups put into it. It is a thankless time during the interim to be up here, but they jumped all in and took input from everywhere and did an excellent job. I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish this week. Open up questions.
The DHS spending bill that didn't make it on either side. Some discussion, at least rumors, on rural versus urban issues on domestic violence programs. Is that true, or is it into that?
The truth is what came out of the Joint Committee. The Senate version of that bill encompassed that entirely without any additions or removals. The House, after the Joint Committee, wanted to make some changes that we didn't find agreeable at that time, but we're working extremely well with our House counterparts. I'm confident that we'll come up with a solution before next session.
But the sticking point was the domestic violence.
The $2.8 million for the kids who are aging out of foster care was the difference in the two bills. The Senate version, the plan that came through the portal process, the $2.8 million at the YWCA, to be able to provide transitional housing for kids who are aging out of foster care was included in ours as it came out of the working group. The House wished to modify that, and we didn't agree to that. But like I said, working with Speaker McCall, working with his team, we're going to come up with a solution.
Can you say a little more background just on, because there was another disagreement over money for DV centers for regular session, right?
No, it didn't come from regular session. It's come since. The regular session, we had dual tracks where both the Speaker identified it as a priority in his caucus to put money toward DV. I applaud him for doing that. I also, almost at the same time, went to Senator Thompson and said, hey, we need to put more money in DV services. It became after the fact on how that is allocated and all of that, but we're going to work through it. I'm not nervous about it. The underlying money that goes to domestic violence on an ongoing basis, not the additional $3 million we put in this year, has started to go out. My main concern during the early parts of the summer, or really fall, were that was going to get held up in this disagreement, but we made sure collectively that part that normally goes out continue to go out as normal as we work out our disagreement on the new monies, the $3 million.
Are they frustrated by your wife's role with the YWCA on the?
No, I mean, my wife, I don't normally talk about it, but very proud of Marissa and the work she does with domestic violence victims. She is a volunteer on the board. She grew up in a house where domestic violence was a daily occurrence, living in and out of her house for fear of what her now late father would do. We buried him just a couple of years ago. He's a Vietnam vet. Loved him, but he had a very troubled soul. And Marissa grew up in that environment. And so she has a heart for helping these women. Had she not had a grandmother that could have taken her and her mom in at times, she would have likely ended up in a shelter and needed shelter care. So no, it is not. People try to make it an issue, but this came through the portal, the 2.8 million I'm talking about, and went through the normal process. I'm completely comfortable having that conversation. I'm not comfortable talking about my wife's background because I don't want to. It's a sad chapter.
When you say the House wanted to modify, do you mean up or down that amount?
You'll have to ask them on their actual. They redrafted it to where it had to go through an entity that had more than 25 board members.
I guess that's what I meant though, right, is that she serves on the organization that the Senate wanted the money to go to.
No, the joint committee
I'm sorry,
wanted to
correct.
go to.
Well,
It went through the working group. I did not put that in the portal. It went through private meetings, public meetings. It went through a vote where a unanimous vote of both House and Senate members on that joint committee approved it. It did not come from the Senate. It came through the portal and it came through the joint committee.
my apologies, I meant that your preference was to keep it as it came through the joint.
My preference on all the bills, in fact, we had a dispute on the OSIDA bill under the same issue of trying to change stuff that came out of the joint committee. But I don't wish to speak ill of my counterpart. We worked extremely well with Speaker McCall and his team, and we will continue to do so.
Can you talk a little bit about the prep funds? Are you happy with how that turned out? And also the full list of projects that you guys funded wasn't released until after you voted. Can you talk a little bit about why that was?
On the prep fund?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have tried to be abundantly transparent in the whole process. All of those have been spoken about in public, put on the website by Monday. The list, I'm not familiar with what particular list you're talking about, but all of those have been in the public dialogue, in my opinion, and have been well vetted. We brought the Democrat caucus into the loop at the same time as our caucus on how these projects were going, brought in the major projects and allowed all questions. In fact, a member of the minority party caught me on the floor yesterday and said this has been the absolute best process that this member has seen in their entire time in public service.
Are you happy with how are you happy with the projects that were funded?
Yeah, you always want to maximize the benefit, and when we try to do economic development, when we travel and talk to people about investing in Oklahoma, oftentimes Mid-America is the only option, and we needed to create options throughout the state. We work closely with the Department of Commerce and the state administration to identify what those biggest bang for our buck around the state was, and I think we did an excellent job working both with the House and with the governor and his team and local economic developers who had input in the commerce plan. Yes, I think we're going to have generational change both on the ARPA monies and the PREP money. I think it's a tremendous investment in our future.
You mentioned the governor.
Yeah, just one more question. You think you were very transparent with the public with how the prep was spent?
I think we were very transparent through the whole process, yes.
You mentioned the governor. Do you expect any vetoes on any of these bills?
I hope not. I think that he'll see that we funded priorities that I think he would share. We have fully briefed him on what we were doing. I'm not saying that he said yes to everything, but he was fully aware of what we were doing. And I think that I hope he signs them all, but I don't have a commitment on that, but I don't have any information to the contrary.
That same contingent that was opposing SB 3 because it didn't go far enough for gender care also said that spending all this government funding will just make inflation worse. What's your assessment of that?
Well, the federal government has exacerbated inflation without a doubt over the years of checks going out and with different federal spending. This money is in the economy. We accepted it. It's in the state treasurer's office, actually. We accepted it. I think we're going to maximize its benefit. That was a minority viewpoint within the chamber.
On tax relief, tax reform, obviously, I know you guys weren't planning on doing that during the special session. I mean, is the earliest we could see anything on that next regular session, 2023?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you have any idea when the working group might have recommendations or suggestions?
Prior to next session, they are still working. They are working diligently, and I'm getting briefed on it every couple of weeks. They have done, I can't say exhaustive because you never can turn over every rock, but they are doing the most exhaustive process I've seen at looking at our tax code and what surrounding states and states even not in our region are doing to maximize investment in their state and maximize the potential of their citizens to be successful. And I'm proud of the work they're doing, and I'm committed to trying to help get it across the finish line once it's a finished product.
This is a broader reform, right? This is not just, in theory, one tax decrease or one.
No, this is a global reform is what we're looking at with the hope that we can get as close to zero on the personal income tax as possible.
So what else is on the table when it comes to these forms of relief besides personal income tax?
I'm sorry.
Is like the grocery tax also on the table still, or is it just focusing on the personal income
So the
tax?
grocery tax, the group looked at that and didn't think that was going to provide the most relief to individuals. You know, I believe, you all have seen me in the past, I'm a believer in trying to do something on the grocery tax. We can also look at the credit next year, so nothing is off the table, but to maximize the benefit to Oklahomans, the income tax is where we see a competitive disadvantage for Oklahoma at times. But they haven't concluded that. They are still looking at all the above.
Is that working, are those working group meetings public? Like
No.
public- Why not?
Because we want to have really in-depth conversations and be able to have ardent disagreements within our caucus before we go public. We will go public and we will be transparent about what the process is, but we haven't, it's still a work in progress.
Why didn't you invite any of the Democrats to be part of the working group?
It was a decision I made in caucus when we were trying to make decisions on where we wanted to go. It was just a decision I made. I've been very inclusive of the Democratic Party in many different things. It just wasn't the decision I made on this one. I have a tremendous relationship and a deep amount of respect for Senator Kay Floyd, and I get her input on most everything we do. This one is an internal caucus discussion at this point.
Do you have any idea on ballpark of much ARPA funds are left to allocate after this week's action?
You know, that DHS bill was around $95 million. The workforce group that Senator Adam Pugh led intentionally left money on the table to be able to try to make some more informed decisions, and I can't remember what that final number was.
They said $5 million in the joint committee, but I don't know.
No, there's more than that. It's closer to like, it was at 1.70 and it fluctuated between 40 and 70. It's a significant amount of money.
I think the House has said 60 before. But
Okay.
I'm not sure. It's pretty
I'll take your word for it.
You referenced, there was some disagreement on the OSIDA bill.
Uh-huh.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you illuminate the issue and the disagreement for me?
Yeah, but you know, it got worked out, so I don't,
Oh, okay.
you love controversy. Oh, you love controversy.
It's one of our news values.
I know, it really is. I'll click on your page, Trace, so you can get some more.
Get some more what?
Get advertising revenue or whatever, yeah.
That's- Anyway, that's not how it works.
No, more views. I'm not impugning your character. The OSIDA deal was in a larger bill, but there was $27 million. OSIDA is Oklahoma Space Industrial Development Authority, which is in Burns Flat, Lone Oak area, which is a huge underdeveloped asset for the state of Oklahoma. It is one of the longest runways in the entire continental United States. It got decommissioned and has been used as a backup runway for both Altus and Enid for a long time, and also additionally for the spaceport, OSIDA, for launching unmanned aerial vehicles, satellites, that type of stuff. It has potential. But its real potential is how close it is to I-40 and how close it is in proximity to Oklahoma City for workforce needs. It is a huge potential crown jewel of economic development in the state of Oklahoma. And so we decided to make a significant investment in that of $27 million. That came through the Joint Committee. At one point, and I don't know who originally came up with it, there was a an attempt to take the 27 million and then take it down to 22 million and take 5 million of it and send it over to the Aeronautics Commission for the purposes of radars for unmanned aerial vehicles for some project. That had not come through the working group, had not received the blessing of the working group or the joint committee. The 27 million had. And so the position of the Senate was, no, let's run it as it came out of the joint committee and put language in there that if it's most appropriate that the Aeronautics Commission be contracted with to be able to do this radar, OSIDA could subcontract that out, but still not pervert the wishes of the ARPA committee.
What's the 27 million roughly? What types of upgrades? What?
Hangars, facilities. You'll have to ask the members on the working group more. It came through the portal, and Craig Smith, who's their executive director or whatever the title is now at OSIDA, will probably have a lot more details on what their plans are than I can give you right now. But I believe in it, and I believe in it deeply. OSIDA, has been kind of a political football. In fact, I was going to file a bill to do away with that group back in 2012. And I was told, hey, there's still potential. We draw down federal money. We've really started to draw down monies now from the Air Force. We're finally getting paid for that being a backup runway. And they're being innovative. And I think as I talk to people who are looking at site location, I draw their attention to Burns Flat almost every time if it's of any scale. There is a huge potential right there, and we would develop a part of the state that's, Mid-America is awesome, but we've got to have more opportunities, and I think Burns Flat presents one of the best opportunities outside of Pryor.
Do you have concerns that other projects that were funded in the DHS bill now won't get funded for an extra few months or until you guys come back for regular session? I know they have till 2026 to spend the money, but.
Obviously, I would like to have gotten it through the exact way that came out of the committee, but that bill, as well as most bills, didn't have the emergency clause on it, and so with the sine die to a date certain of October 14th, the earliest it could have been let was January 12th, I believe. So we're talking a matter of a few weeks because we will absolutely try to fast track that when we come in. I don't want to insinuate we have an agreement with the House that we're going to fast track it on the first day, but I know we both have a high priority level of trying to get those projects done.
You mean the first day of regular session, right? Just to clarify.
What did I say?
You said the first day.
Oh, a regular session, yes, yes, sir.
And you, as of right now, do you anticipate the Senate, the House coming back anytime between now and October 14th?
I hope not.
Depends on what the governor does.
Yeah.
perhaps?
Have you signed the governor's special session yet? I know the House has.
No, but in effect, it's sine died because, I don't wish to go down that road all the way again, but I've made my position on that clear.
And a little less controversial, but a few lawmakers said earlier this week that although the ARPA funds won't bring immediate inflation relief to Oklahomans, some of these prep funds might be able to feed towards that on goods into the state jobs. Can you kind of just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the prep fund was us trying to decide to invest in ourselves. There's all this talk about the federal money through ARPA, and it is going to be a huge ability to invest in ourselves. But the prep fund came really out of our conversations on Project Ocean with our caucuses, both the House and Senate and Republican and Democrat, of a general, hey, we love Pryor, we love Mays County, but why aren't other parts of the state getting investment, and why are we being overlooked? Workforce issues are something that we really invested in heavily, but also just site development. You need to have natural gas, you need to have broadband, you need to have sewer and water infrastructure in some of these places. It's not the sexiest investment, but it will have the best return on our dollars that we will see. I think that prep fund can be a model for future investment in Oklahoma.
Let's talk about SB3 real quick if we can. OU presented to both caucuses, is my understanding, and talked to members about what they do with the Roy G. Biv Center. What was it that made you feel that something needed to be done to include it and tie that into their ARPA projects as well?
So
Maybe they didn't speak to your caucus.
I don't.
Sorry, they must
Yeah,
have presented.
unless I didn't get the invite to the caucus, they did not speak to our caucus.
I'm sorry.
I felt like the investment in children's behavioral health is something that is going to be one of the biggest achievements that we've been able to do in my legislative career. All told, we'll have put $120 million, including the $39.4 million that was included in Senate Bill 3. I felt it was important, and once it became known about the sex reassignment surgeries and procedures that are non-surgical, we think there are some decisions that minors should not be able to make that are life-altering. Those are decisions that are best left for adults, and throughout our statute there are a multitude of examples where even with parental consent, kids can't enter into contracts, they can't do a multitude of things, and we thought that was important. But more important, or at least equally important, I would say more, is the investment in children's behavioral health that gets buried in this conversation a lot. We are absolutely behind on mental health treatment for kids, and COVID exposed that in a very big way. Kids being out of school, at home on their computers often. I'm not saying it created it, but it definitely brought it to light to a lot of parents and a lot of people just in society. And I'm proud of the investments we're making in behavioral health. Like I said, that one project, all told, will be $120 million when that 39.4 gets put in.
I think typically you're in favor of parental rights, right? Like I think school choice, parental rights on a lot of the other
Yeah.
issues. What makes that different in this healthcare decision between a parent and a child who, say the child comes to them for 5 years in a row and is just saying over and over again that this is the situation. The parent decides to make that decision. Why does the government get involved in that?
Government gets involved in a lot of decisions that we think are going to be life-altering for that child. A parent can't say, I don't like dealing in hypotheticals, you know that, so I'm not going to go down that road. But no matter how much the kid says, and I don't want to equate gender dysphoria with wanting to drink alcohol, but our laws do not allow a parent to say, you know what, we think you're mature enough to start drinking and having friends over and having a keg party at our house. Our laws are very clear on that. We take away that so-called freedom because it's in the best interest of society and it's the best interest of kids. Kids' brain development really gets completed, medical science, around 25. And our laws reflect that. Tobacco, we moved from 18 to 21 recently. Cigarettes, alcohol. So I think that it's entirely consistent there. Yeah, I believe parents make really good choices for their kids, but when you're going through puberty, there are a lot of changes and there's a lot of confusion that's very natural for almost every human being that we all have lived through that. And those are life-altering decisions that we think are serious enough that they should wait till the age of maturity.
I got
Similar
one
Similar bills were introduced earlier in the session by some members, didn't get hearings in committee. Why was now the right time to take this up?
So I'm familiar with that assertion that happened, and I know that's true. I wasn't intimately involved in those decisions. The committee chairs made those decisions, and I support my committee chairs being able to run their committees. I think those were probably much more expansive, but I'm out over my skis on knowing the details of those because those did not come to my attention. What did come to my attention was when we were trying to make historic, monumental investments in children's behavioral health, the website of OU was sent to me by someone who had concerns, and that's the first time that I heard about what OU was doing.
You've touted the process that landed with these and how the House wants to change the DHS bill and how there was a desire to change OSIDA. But this issue was not discussed in public, in the working groups, or in the joint committee. How do you reconcile
It was absolutely discussed in public. I spent 2.5 hours discussing it in public yesterday. Now, what your question stands prior to that. What happens oftentimes in conference committee reports is there are changes that come along. Now, what I'm talking about before are unilateral desires to change from one body or the other. This was a joint decision that we felt was extremely important, and I'm very happy to have worked closely with Speaker McCall and his team to make sure that we got this done.
Are you worried that somebody might sue and challenge essentially the gender affirmation provision you added, and it holds up all the money that goes to OU Health, including the behavioral health center, which you said is much needed?
I would not be surprised people who have different opinions sue oftentimes. I think that we're well within our right to put restrictions on the money that we put forward.
But what about, will that delay the building of this behavioral health center?
Only if they are successful in challenging it. I believe that it's defensible.
One more question on this matter to me. I've heard members of your caucus and other lawmakers in the building state there's only two genders, right? It's, there's male and female, body parts don't lie, those sorts of things. It struck me that in this bill, it codifies in state statute the acknowledgement that individuals born with ambiguous genitalia, incomplete genitalia, both male, female anatomy, biochemically verifiable disorders, 46XX, 46XY. The people who voted in favor of this yesterday codified it in state law saying that intersex individuals exist. Is that notable or remarkable at all? Does that push back against the sort of notion there's only male and female?
I believe I've never denied that there are people who have legitimate issues, chromosomal issues. I've looked at the numbers. Most of those conditions that we delineated are about 1 in 20,000, 1 in 80,000. It's extremely rare, but it really does happen. And every human life deserves dignity, and I think that law codified that they're something that we all knew to be true. Now, male and female and the blurring of lines, people are frustrated oftentimes with the cultural discussion, the political discussion on it, but the science of people sometimes having genetic abnormalities is not new news to anyone in this building.
So,
Go ahead.
Senator Sandridge is running against you for pro tem?
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts on that?
He's ran against me every time. So but I don't talk about internal caucus politics. I'm confident that I'm doing the best job I can do, and hope to remain as pro tem in the end.
I got one more question about your conversations with the governor. You brought up to him what you guys were going to pass with ARPA. He was well aware of that. Did he ask you guys, or ask you specifically, why you are not moving forward on a grocery tax cut?
He and I've talked about taxes more globally, not so much specific on just grocery. Oh, no, that's true. He did come back with grocery. Yeah, we've talked about it. He knows my position and respects that I have a difference of opinion on it.
Because this week he had the press conference and said that you guys talked, but seemed to be pretty adamant and optimistic that it would happen, yet from you, it doesn't seem that way at all.
I did not watch his press conference, so I can't characterize what his attitude was there.
Can I ask about, you guys are talking about moving Griffin Memorial? It's the mental
Mhm.
facility in Norman. Where would you like to see that end up? Do you think that should be more in Oklahoma City? Do you think it should remain on the property, existing across in Norman?
I'm entirely agnostic as to where the location is. I'm a huge believer that we need to invest in that. The building in Norman is outdated. I've been through it. It's been a long time ago, a decade ago, and it was outdated then. People deserve a place that is welcoming. And so I'm agnostic as to the location. I think that there's a lot at the mental health department that sees some benefit of putting it in Oklahoma City, but I haven't pushed one way or another on that.
Where's the rest of the money gonna come from? I think it's 130 something.
On out for me, that's something probably better asked of the appropriations chair.
So we're not looking at a bond, like a legislative bond?
Not that I'm aware of.
You talked about Governor Stitt. You guys have had your disagreements and airing of grievances and festivus.
Yes.
Testify. Have you endorsed him for his
Yes,
election?
absolutely. I consider him a friend, and I want him to remain as governor. Yes, I endorsed him early on.
Thank you for the reminder.
Have you set a date for your school choice interim study yet?
No, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do it or not. People know my position. I've got two. I've got that and one on judicial reform. And this special session calendar has taken so much of my time that I don't want to have it just to check the box and say I did it. I want it to be productive. So if I can make it be productive, get people's travel schedule to line up and everything, I'll do it, but no, there's no date set.
And no date set for the other one either, the judicial reform.
Neither
So,
one.
up in the air.
I'll either do both or I'll do neither. I won't do one or the other. All right, thank you all.